Hello, everybody. This is Gynarchic Awakening. I've been away for about a week. Decided to give a little bit of a progress report. One other library in New Zealand has agreed to purchase, I believe, the Pillars of Gynarchy. Uh, then there was, I think, a library in New York that decided that they were going to go ahead and buy the books. So there has been some progress from those two places. I have also taken the liberty of going through all of Australia that I could and submitting suggestions to all those libraries, along with finding out which libraries have her books in their catalog. Well, it's ebooks when it's going to be anything. If she has her books in the stores, they're usually ebooks. There are about four libraries or library systems in Australia that have Vial of Ultrane's books, ebooks. I don't know how successful the suggestions are going to be because I am still waiting for a confirmed we're going to buy it with no conditions attached. But I would like to say that if you are a gynecologist living in Australia, you can do Vial of Ultraine a lot of good by suggesting, because there were several cases where people essentially said, yeah, we'll go ahead and help you. All we need is your library card and whatever. Like there was no resistance. And this is part of a point that I wanted to convey to the audience, to anybody who is kind of on the fence about this, feeling apprehensive, nervous, or scared. The people at these libraries are very kind, very professional. I have not received even one death threat, one hostile interaction, either on the phone or by email, with anyone who has been working at these libraries. These people have been extremely generous, courteous, and I can't do anything except applaud their professionalism. I if if I hope that by explaining this will assuage some fears you may have, because I understand that maybe not everybody wants to stick out like a sore thumb. Not everybody wants to get directly involved. I understand that. I understand being afraid of exposing yourself to so many people because you never knew who you're going to expose yourself to. And yet at the same time, I've come to find that the people who work at the libraries, generally speaking, they hold themselves to, either they are forcing themselves to be polite or they're just like that. But either way, they are operating at a much higher standard of civility and conduct than I expect from the average person. The people who work at libraries are, simply speaking, just wonderful people, or people who know how to exercise discipline over what they say and do. None of them have ever cussed me out. Uh, None of them have even said anything remotely uh, aggressive. Some of them have made suggestions that kind of make me go, hmm. But for the most part, they've been extremely helpful, and I'm happy to say that this is going well, that the research is going well. What I'm going to do is, when I'm done with all the English speaking countries and any other nations I decide need to be investigated for these books or whatever, I'm gonna try to find a way to compile all the data so that people can know exactly where the woman's books are in any of these countries. I think that's also very useful for other reasons as well. For example, if you have a bunch of counties that are have libraries that don't seem to have a problem with putting Gynarchy in their works, at the very least, they're tolerant of those views. And I think that that says a lot, not only about the library, but about the community itself, because the community produces the individuals who end up working at the libraries and any of the other areas. Now, it's not always the case. You can have somebody driving in from 50, 60 miles away. I understand that. I get that. I'm also suggesting that sometimes it's homegrown too. Sometimes the people are there, the people who go there are okay with it as well. Obviously, there have been cases where I have suggested things and people just didn't come out right and say it, but they essentially said that this might not be good for our community. In other words, I guess what they're really saying is we don't want the heat. We think the people in our community will react poorly to it. That's how I'm interpreting the comment. It could be wrong. But there is hope that by compiling this and by showing people exactly where you can find them, that people, individuals, will say, hey, well, let's check these areas out. Maybe these areas have Gynarchists in them, right? Because the thing is, in order for there to be books in there, somebody would have had to have suggested it. So you can kind of make the inference that if there are paperback or hardback copies in a library, that there's likely a Gynarchist in that area. So you can actually use this kind of system when it involves paperback books, to, at least before I got involved, to find out where they're at. Like you'll know where they're coming from. One of them is from Sutter County. There is a Gynarchist probably in Sutter County because I had nothing to do with that. There were there were two copies of her book on order. So that's not I had nothing to do with that. That was most likely Sutter. That was most likely somebody from Sutter. So uh, I think this data and research will help the Gynarchy community in many ways. I think it'll show us that hey, maybe we're not as small of a community as we think we are. Maybe more people will be accepting and tolerant of refusing. I think that's also like why that's also going to be a positive that'll come out of this. I my hope is that when people actually see how many libraries are willing to accept and tolerate these views, I think that will make Gynarchists feel better because to some extent, they self-censor. They're very careful with who they talk to in public. They have to watch their language, police themselves, and if they start seeing that, hey, oh look at this area with all of this stuff. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're tolerating. Uh, it helps to have a place or to know the spaces where you are tolerated versus where you are not tolerated. I think that's important because if you learn which libraries don't have the books and you also learn which libraries are refusing to order them for whatever reason, whereas you have other people who are jumping on it, it tells you about the world. It tells you about the people who occupy it. It tells you which areas are you're going to be you're more likely to integrate into versus not. Now, is it as good as doing actual survey research, like going up to individuals and asking them questions to try to reveal their opinions regarding the opposite sex, politics? No, obviously not. That is the most direct way of discovering what I call the Gynarchic hotspot. You really have to investigate an area more fully before you can determine whether or not it's safe for our people. But this is a start because if you know that a library, whatever, is tolerant of this, then it lets you know, okay, well, I guess we're not just living in some small corner. We're not just some small group. There is a there are plenty of other people who think, you know what, there's nothing wrong with thinking like this. And I think that also matters. The idea of when they see how many libraries have her books in their catalog or have her books in paperback or a book form, I think that will validate the feelings of many Gynarchists who do suffer from loneliness, who do think that they are on the fringe. Being validated, knowing that there are so many different libraries in the world that are accepting these works, tells people that hey, maybe there's hope. Maybe things can change for the better. Maybe people can change for the better. I also think one little secret benefit of this is if you know which libraries uh, do have her works and which ones don't, you can use that to your advantage, right? Let's say you're on a hard budget. Let's also say that, you want to suggest something to somebody, but you don't really have the money or whatever. Well, you could just tell somebody where they can go to read the material. Like, okay, well, this library has Hoopla and you can read it on Hoopla. That's one option. Or you could say, hey, look, this library has a paperback copy. You can check it out for yourself. I mean, that's one way you can get access to these materials, or you can suggest that someone read the materials and know exactly where to send them to go get them. If they happen to be, if the person you're talking to happens to be living in that area. In other words, it's a way of saving money. You don't have to spend it. The library's spending money on it. Of course, it would be nice if you could be a patron and throw your support behind it too, but you can't expect that of everyone and every human being, even if it would be nice. So that's ongoing. As for the future, oh goodness, not this again. Sometimes it's just like, it just comes out of nowhere. Sorry about that. What's going to happen next is I still have to finish New York. It's like this giant stack over here. I've got some of it done. I actually got a third of it done. I have a third of New York suggested through and done, and I'm gonna just keep on going. So I am starting with this, and then I'm gonna be moving on to the other states while also dealing with some of the foreign countries. Thankfully, not all countries are the same size. There's like Antigua. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. It had about 80,000 people and only had one library. So thankfully, I can cover more ground there. I'm also thinking about trying to find a way to contact the people in Japan because there's a lot. I've come to find that from the anime to the manga, that there are gyno supremacists in Japan. It's undeniable. It's part. I mean, I think it's just part of their culture. I've heard and read, and not heard. I read that they were matrifocal a long time ago, and that things changed because of of invaders. But what I do think is, I think if I can find some people who are interested in reading English literature, I might be able to do something there too. So I'm just pushing in these directions. I haven't forgotten about my main content, by the way. I know it's been a while since I did content for the channel, and I do plan on making content. I'm just right now I am engaging in this research. I am achieving success. There are libraries who are buying the books. Not everybody's getting back to me, but that's fine. You know, whoever is going to buy is going to buy, and the fact that I got even one county outside of my state, but still within the United States to do it is something that's great. The fact that New Zealand did it twice, I mean, and that Australia, one of them said that they would buy it if I had supplied them the information. In other words, they're basically saying they'll do it, but first they need this, so it was conditional. So if I had supplied that information from that county, not county, province or shire or whatever they call it, if I had done that information, that book would now be in that library. It will, or at least it would have been on the way. So I'm just informing everybody that it's not just New Zealand. I can confirm this for a fact that at least one Australian library was willing to buy the Pillars of Gynarchy if I had supplied the information. I couldn't because I'm not a resident of that particular province, shire, whatever they're calling it. I think they're shires. But I'm not capable of doing that because I am not an Australian citizen. So if you are from Australia and you're Gynarchist, know that if you do this, you will be successful, more so than I could ever hope to be. And I'm just telling you, to the Australian Gynarchists out there, if you make suggestions, there are some of them who are ready and waiting for it. That if you do what I just did and you have the information, you can put her books in those libraries. Anyways, I plan on making some other content in the future. So I look forward to doing that, and I look forward to making some videos. I hope that this has been informative and useful. Well wishes, everybody. Please take care. I got to get to doing some cannonball crushing. Peace out, everybody.